Predictable performance.
Yep. Welcome back, my little friends, to the Surface Go. That is not this, but this is.
Right.
I mean, this is what it is, though. I mean, this is the Surface 3, for those.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is the Surface Go.
Yep.
This is the Surface 3, and
it's similar. You know, it's funny that the new device is smaller.
Slightly.
Yeah, I'm curious how the keyboards line up. You know, once you get your Go review unit, that's going to be the really interesting thing.
Yeah.
I think what you're going to see is a bigger trackpad.
Oh yeah, I mean, look at this trackpad. I mean, it's the size of.
Yeah, it's tiny. Yeah, that's back. You know, that's 3 years ago. The keyboard is probably a little closer to the edges, I guess, but it's still smaller.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be impossible to see on this, but
yep,
you can see the old type cover where all the keys are nested right next to each other. This is maybe more of like a chiclet style.
Yep.
And so
to reacquaint myself with this, I actually used the new Surface Pro to write at least 2 of the articles that I published. And I was working on this stuff yesterday, and you know, I'm just kind of struck by what a good device it is, you know. And the interesting thing about Surface Go to me is it's not for me. I mean, there's no way I could ever use this thing, right? Except maybe in a very casual way, you know, kind of leave one around the house, and you know, the type of thing where you're watching TV and you have to want to browse something and the phone's too small, whatever. But I, you know, these are, you know, I realize this isn't like the Andromeda thing that everyone was so, you know, pumped about or whatever, but I don't know, this is still an interesting device.
Yeah, the only thing that matters to me at this point is the performance of that CPU.
Yeah,
because
like
everything else we already know, right? It's classic Surface. It's this thing, but with a multi or infinite stop kickstand rather than this 3-step garbage. It supports pen. It supports it. It's everything we know about a Surface Pro, just smaller price, smaller batteries, smaller screen size, smaller everything. And so that CPU with and it still hurts to say, 64 gigabytes of eMMC storage is going to be the story.
Yeah, so I specifically, I mentioned that in an article, but I put up a specific post to that effect, which is ignore the low-end configuration. It's not good for anybody. Just don't do it.
Yeah, that's the concern.
Yeah. So, I mean, but, you know, Mahedi just posted something about Microsoft bringing kind of the quality of the Surface lineup down to a new price point, which I think is true and is important. And if you compare it to the other $400 to $550, actually, we might want to say $500 to $670, whatever, kind of that range, which is kind of like the mid-level range. You know, you're looking at a lot of plastic components and cheap build quality. It's not a durable device. And I think that the thing that really puts this over the top is going to be for students especially, but also for people who can deal with that smaller device form factor. This thing's not going to fall apart in your bag.
Right.
Know?
Yep.
And you and I know, we talk about this a lot. I mean, we lately have been traveling with Surface Books, typically for the past couple of years. There's something about these Surface products. You know, there's a quality there that is readily apparent, you know, when you see it and pick it up. And it's in the Surface Go.
I use it every day in this podcast. So it's, as much as we do complain, they are typically very reliable.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that the Surface Gate thing, which was the initial batch of Surface Pro 4 and Surface Book PCs, was problematic. You know, that whole Consumer Reports thing dates back to that. That's what that is. That's people who bought those devices experiencing those very real reliability problems and reporting that back to Consumer Reports. Anecdotally, and it's even better than anecdotal, I don't believe that any of the more recent Surface products suffer from those problems. And I don't say that based on just my own experience, although that is very real. I say it based on the feedback that I get from readers. And it's kind of like the Windows 10 version, 1803 stuff or whatever, where, you know, there's information out in the world, and then I get information back from people like you do. And in that case, it was all negative, but not all negative, largely a lot of negative stuff. With the new Surface stuff, it's all been very positive. I don't hear that kind of complaint anymore.
Yep. And speaking of, well, nothing, nothing along that lines. It is available in 25 countries starting today. So for most people, you can probably get your hands on it. If you're in the Asia Pacific region, it might be a few more days. And then if you're in the Middle East, it's going to be roughly mid-September. So keep that in mind. I believe availability is August 2nd. Does that sound about right?
Yep.
And then there are a bunch of different configurations. The $399 model is 4 gigs for 64 gigs of storage, but that is slower storage. And then for a sizable jump, $549, you get 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage. That should be a pretty good machine. And then on the corporate side of life, because those versions come with Windows 10 Home in S mode. If you are in the channel and you want to buy this, the lower tier is $449 but comes with Pro, and the higher end is $599 and comes with Pro. But no keyboard.
Somebody asked me this, and I can't remember, and I probably do have a home machine here. I just can't find it or whatever. But if you go to the store today with Windows 10 Home and you say, I want to upgrade this thing to Pro, it's more than $50, right? Isn't that like $100 or even more than $100? Yeah.
What does this machine have on it? Probably Pro.
Oh, Book definitely has Pro.
It should. I mean, it was 30.
So I just don't know, but it's interesting to me that the commercial versions of this product are only $50 more. That said, I don't think most people out in the world need Pro. So you can get home in S mode. You can take it out of S mode immediately. You should do that. It's free, so you can save some money by just buying it direct from Microsoft or whatever.
Yep, and they are quoting up to 9 hours of battery life, but that's video playback. I'm betting this thing is somewhere between 5 to 6, which is a bit of a downer.
Yeah, yeah. So my own battery life test is very similar to what Microsoft is doing here, which is just like a stream. I stream over Wi-Fi and HD video, blah blah blah, whatever. So. Yeah, the 9 hours of Microsoft Sites is kind of, it's ideal. Typically, when PC manufacturers use that kind of battery life, it's 70%-ish of that real world, and it's going to depend on how you use it, of course. So, yeah, you're probably right. It's going to be somewhere down there. It's not great, but I think the focus here, largely, not exclusively, but for people at home, battery life is not a huge issue.
Yeah.
You're never going to be more than a few feet from a wall plug or whatever. Education, this could be a little bit of a problem, and that's a key market for sure. They talk about first-line workers and, just those people who kind of want to have their own device. I guess that's kind of a home use kind of thing. It's going to depend on the scenario. The other thing to remember, too, is you're only looking at a couple $100 to get a perfectly capable, and especially right now, there's a really nice sale going on right now, Surface Pro.
Right.
There's a Surface Pro Platinum bundle. I think it's $799. It's 8 gigs, 128 gigs of storage, Core i5, and it's a signature type cover. $799. A similar, they don't have a Core i5 version, but the high-end version of the Surface Go, which is $550 plus $100 for a type cover. Signature type cover is $120, but say $100 is $650. So for $150 more. Better battery life, better performance. It's kind of a no-brainer. Bigger screen, super portable still.
It'll be interesting to see. I'm optimistic that this thing will sell, but I don't think it's going to be a Surface Pro type seller.
I wonder. I mean, I go back and forth on this kind of thing. In fact, like you probably, I've kind of spent much of the past 2 weeks, which is when we first saw the device, kind of thinking about it. For myself, I'm fairly cynical. I mean, my initial reaction is somewhat negative, and only because it's like, really, like we're just doing this again. I feel like Microsoft made a mistake leaving this part of the market. I think there should have been a Surface 4, a Surface 5, whatever. I think we may see a Qualcomm version of this in the future when those chips are finally up to speed. It's not revolutionary, right? But in the same sense that they've kind of padded out the product line since they introduced Surface Pro 4 and Surface Book, with Surface Laptop, with Surface Studio. It fits in. There's a kind of an expanded family that occurs here. And also, if they do release Andromeda, I think that slots in better to this more complete lineup than it would if there was no Surface Go. It would be so different.
Yeah, there were a lot of questions why this thing wasn't ARM-based.
That's simple though, because the current
Yeah.
generation's garbage. And they there's a video if you haven't watched it. The Microsoft, I think it's called the Microsoft Mechanics now put a video up introducing Surface Go, and there's a bunch of neat little things. I don't know if you caught this, but I don't recall seeing a power supply for this device when we went to that event.
Oh, right.
And the power supply is about half the size of a normal Surface chair. I only have this Surface. This is a bad example, but this is the Surface dock charger. But it's kind of like at the middle of a line. There's a cord on either side. So the Surface Go charger is like the tiny part, and it kind of comes out with the prongs there, like was the case on Surface 3, right? So it's smaller than those things. Okay, it's cool. Also, fast charging, which they call intelligent charging, will get the device up to 100% battery life in 2 hours. That's incredible.
Yeah.
But what was the point? And why not ARM? No, sorry. So the reason not ARM is what they call, in this video, they said they chose to stuck with the Intel architecture for what they called predictable performance. Specifically with the dual use nature of this device where you're going to run desktop apps and mobile apps. They're kind of implicitly acknowledging that the store app thing is not a thing yet, that you may run a few of those, but you still have to run desktop apps. That's a big change, by the way, and even though they didn't say it, come out really and say it, but they literally said we chose to stick with the Intel architecture. Very pragmatic. And I do think that will change, but, like you, the thing you said right up front is the central number one issue. What is this thing really like in the real world? We don't know yet.
Yep. And it's a 24-watt power supply. And I believe the one that comes with the Surface Book 2 is like 90 watts or 100 or something like that. Which is why it's so much smaller.
Yeah. I think the one that you have on yours might even be a little bigger than that. I think it's pretty much as big as that kind of power supply can get.
Yep. It's huge.
Yeah.
Huge, they might say. The other thing too is that not everybody's talked about or whatever, but it is fanless, 100% fanless, much like the old Surface 3 here. And then the one interesting thing, I think it was an interview with Wired where they talk about it, but Panos said the biggest mistake of the Surface 3 was using USB micro for
micro
charging.
USB. Yep, I agree with that. They did it for a good reason, though, and it's interesting because when you flash forward to today, there's a little element of that in the new one, right? So back then the idea was, well, everyone already has these chargers for their phones, which was sort of the case, unless you were an iPhone user, I guess. And that made it so that if you were out in the world and you didn't want to bring your charger, you'd either have it already or someone near you would have it. And I kind of buy that. They see such great value from that Surface Connect port that it's become clear to me they're never going to get rid of it, right? Yeah. So they did do that. But in that same video that I just referenced, they mentioned the fact that if you're out in the world and you don't bring your charger, any USB-C charger from a phone, which is kind of the new standard, right, for Android phones, will work as well. It may charge more slowly, depending on the size of the wall board or whatever, but it will work. And so that kind of the pragmatism of that kind of continues forward, but this time they do include the Surface Connect. And you I don't know if you have one, but you may recall either way that there was a dock for Surface 3 that was unique to that device because of its unique port layout. And back in that time frame, the dock for, I guess it would have been Surface Pro 3 was kind of low and wide, and it kind of snapped in on the device, so it kind of plugged into whatever ports were there. So they had to make a special one for Surface 3. Now they just have one dock, and it just works with everything.
Yeah. And for those who are curious, the Surface mobile mouse is $34.99. And it comes in. Does it only come in burgundy and platinum?
Yeah, burgundy, it's a dark cobalt blue, and
this is I don't know if I can hold on. Let me see if I can get this to reshow. Yes, this is Microsoft's website for this thing. This is brilliant right here.
Oh, bring your side full screen. Yeah.
Okay, so you can see the website here. Surface mobile mouse, that some fashionable lady putting it into her purse. And so they have over here burgundy, platinum, and then all configurations. Why wouldn't they just click
That's
this?
amazing. So what happens when you click that? You get the other choice?
Yep. Just one, though. Just one choice.
That's amazing.
So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I can't use it. It's too small for me. The mouse is not ergonomic. I'll always complain about that kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing. The pen is not included. It doesn't have the Pixel Sense accelerator chip inside, blah, 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 whatever. But it's a mid 500s kind of device. I mean, this is going to open up the Surface line to a much bigger audience. The same thing that,
Sure.
Surface 3, Surface 2, Surface RT, whatever, did back in the day. I'm glad I think it's smart of them to do this. When Surface 3 was canceled, there was a real hole there. And you remember that fall, that's when they launched Surface Pro 4 and Surface
Mm-hmm.
Book. And they really went off the, deep end with pricing. I mean, it's just like went super premium across the board. And I sort of got that, but I like these things being more accessible to people.
Yep. Yep. You got anything else for today, Paul? There's a whole bunch of Surface Go. I want to call it the Pro, but if you put them together, it's a GoPro. There's a whole bunch of
There's a
content
whole go pro, no pro, no go, kind of thing. But yeah, I'll have some more stuff about this product later today. I'll be doing What the Tech today with Andrew. I'm sure that's all we'll talk about as well. So yeah, this is kind of going to be the focus today, I bet.
Yep. Yep. And I fully agree. I tossed a thread up in the forums for people who had questions. I'm going to try to maybe do a video this afternoon
Nice.
diving into all those questions. And yeah, with that, folks, we're going to wrap it up here today, and we'll catch you right back here tomorrow on First Ring Daily.